This conference will now be recorded.
This is Dr. Panduranga Undavelli.
This conference will now be recorded.
So before actually entering into the concept of genetic algorithms, so I would like to explain or brief you about what is meant by optimization and how the optimization problems are solved, and what are how a traditional optimization algorithm works, and how a genetic algorithm works. So then only you will be able to clearly understand so why one has to take the help of non-traditional population-based optimization algorithms like genetic algorithms. So that's why I will proceed the way which I have explained. Now coming to the definition of optimization. So it is the process of finding the best one out of all feasible solutions. So optimization is everywhere in our day-to-day life. So whatever the activity we are planning to do, or whatever the task we are planning to do, or whether we are planning to buy something. So everywhere we try to find optimization. So for example, I wanted to go to certain location. I will find what is the best route or the shortest. And if I wanted to buy something, and I'll be acquiring market many places, and I try to buy the product having the competitive features, and at the same time it should be available at least cost. So always we try to try to utilize the principles of optimization in our day-to-day life. There are many solutions possible. These are called feasible solutions, and from there we try to find the best. So that is called the optimization. And the concept of optimization is defined mathematically as follows. This we are solving this problem from our high school standards, like even at the time when differentiation calculus was introduced. So there we used to solve this problem of maximization and minimization. Now I'm going to explain how the optimization problem can be defined mathematically and how we are going to solve that problem. So let us consider, so for the sake of simplicity and understanding the relative ease, I'm going to consider a single variable function x, that is y is equal to fx. So mathematically we wanted to solve by using the principles of calculus. What we will be doing? So like we will be finding the first derivative of the function, that is f dash x, and we are going to find, and we will be equating it to 0, and then we will be finding the value of x, and let us say that x is equal to x star, and we say that the function is optimum at this value of x for a single variable problem. But we don't know whether it is either maximum or minimum. So in order to further investigate the nature of the point, we have to determine the first non-zero higher order derivative denoted by n. So first order n is equal to 1, second higher order derivative n is equal to 2, third order derivative n is equal to 3. So like that, we are for the given function we have to find the non-zero higher order derivative. Then so once I find higher order non-zero derivative, that is the value of n, then there may be two cases arises. What are those two cases? Either the value of n could be an odd number or it could be an even number. If n is found to be an odd number, then it is having a significance. Then whatever the value x is equal to x star, which I determined for the first derivative, so then at that point this function is having an inflection point. And if n is seen to be even number, then where x is equal to x star, the function is having a local optimum point. To investigate further, a local maximum or a local minimum, once again the following two conditions are set. So if the value of the derivative is found to be positive, once you obtain the higher order non-zero derivative, then and in that you will be substituting the functional, you will be substituting the value of x, that is equal to x star in the function, and then the functional value comes out to be positive, then it is having a local minimum at that point. And if the value of the derivative is seen to be negative, if I substitute the value of x in the function, x is equal to x star in that function, if I get a negative value, then at that point it is having the local maximum point, or at that point the function is maximum. Now immediately I'm going to give an example, show an example, so that you will be understanding what is an optimization problem, how easy it is to solve a simple optimization problem. Or this type of functions are called, like if you see the function that is shown here, an inverted bell shape, and these functions are called unimodal functions. And you may have different functions like multimodal functions. There you will be having multiple bases. Okay, so now determine the maximum, the minimum, or maximum, or inflection point of the function fx is equal to x square by 2 plus 125 by x for the positive value of x. So like the function is a unimodal function, or sometimes you may have functions like this. These are called multimodal functions. Okay. Now, if such a function is given, how to find or how to determine optimal value for this function? So the function is fx is equal to x square by 2 plus 125 by x. And if I go for the first derivative of this function, so this will x square, it will become 2x by 2, and it will become x, and it is minus 125 by x square. So now we have to equate it to 0. First, after obtaining the first derivative, this function need to be equal to 0, and by solving this function, you have got x is equal. So with that, we came to the conclusion that this function is going to have either optimal point or an inflection point at x is equal to 5. Okay. So then, in order to determine at the value at the point of x is equal to 5, what is the value, whether it is minimum or maximum or inflection point exists, we're going to determine that second derivative. So then we will be like substituting the value of this x in this function, and I have got value 3. So as n is found to be even, it indicates that there exists local optima at x is equal to 5. And after substituting the value of x in the second order derivative, I have got dash x is equal to 3. That is a positive number, and at this point, this function is having a local minimum. And if I wanted to determine the functional minimum and substitute x is equal to 5 in this function, then you'll be able to obtain the functional value. If you see, you substitute, I have got 37.5. Go back and see now here for this function, this function is going to be minimum at x is equal to 5, and its value is around 37. Okay. This is how we are going to solve an optimization problem that consists of a single variable or unimodal function. Now, I'm going to give an example of a real life problem or a real life example. That let us consider the problem of design of a wooden pointer. So nowadays, nobody is using this type of wooden pointer. We are using once the LCD screens and have come up, then we will be using this laser pointer, or like I'm using a highlighter to show the underlines and to highlight the important points. So earlier people were using a stick that is called a wooden pointer. So that was used, and so actually this problem was framed by my professor, and who has written a book on subcomputing, is Dilip Kumar Patihar. I've taken this example from that book, and so whenever we wanted to design that type of pointer, uh, what are the parameters that are to be considered? So the important thing is that the pointer should be as light as possible, and at the same time you have to ensure that there is no mechanical breakage, and at the same time the deflection point at the end is negligible. If you are having too long and too thin pointer, like then what will happen? At the end will become like a cantilever, and the end you will be having deflection. So then if it is too long, the deflection will be high, then ultimately whatever I wanted to point, I may not be successful in pointing what I am supposed to point. So therefore, in that case, it should not be too long. And at the same time, it should not be having too much weight. Otherwise, uh, the presenter will be feeling it as inconvenient. But at the same time, it should have sufficient mechanical strength. So that diagram is shown here. Like this is the pointer, and which is having like it is having a diameter at the holding end, and it is having a length L. And the problem can be posed as an optimization problem. The geometry is specified by diameter and the gripping end D, and nth and the length L, and its density is rho. These are the things that we are going to consider. And then the geometrical parameters, if I consider D, the diameter of the holding hand, and the length of this pointer, then these two parameters, D and L, are known as design or decision variables. The design variables are having some feasible bounds, which are known as geometric constraints. So therefore, the aim of this object optimization problem is to search for a lighter design, and this problem can be expressed as follows. So as I said, that the design is to be lighter and minimize the mass of the pointer m, that is equal to pi square pi d square L rho by 12. So then it is subjected to certain conditions, or I mentioned that whenever I am using this pointer, the end should not have that much deflection. That is, the deflection, it should be less than or equal to the allowable deflection. And the strength of the stick should be greater than the required strength. And the diameter, so whenever I am designing a particular variable, then the variable should have some range, like it should be varied from low value to that. Say for example, diameter 5 to 10 mm. So let us consider that 5 is called the minimum value, and 10 is called maximum value, the maximum and minimum values of the diameter. So that's why it should be varied in between d min and d max. Similarly, the length should also have certain range, that is L min less than or equal to L less than or equal to L max. Now the classification of optimization. So these optimization problems are classified into varieties, wide variety of problems. So depending upon several parameters, like based on the nature of equations, we are having either it could be a linear optimization problem or a non-linear optimization problem. And based on the constraints that are given to the problem, either it could be a functional constraint problem, unconstrained problem, and constraint problem. Based on the type of design variables, it could be either integer programming or real valued programming or mixed integer programming. And coming to the nature of design variables, either it could be static optimization or dynamic optimization. Then if you see the examples, like I have given the examples only for linear and non-linear programming, and I have not given the examples for others. Like if you see the example for linear programming problem, that a function is defined, that is maximize y is equal to f of x1 x2, that is 2x1 plus 3x2 plus 7x1 x2 was subjected to x1 plus x2 less than or equal to 5, with 6x1 plus 3x2 less than or equal to 20, where x1 x2 should be greater than or equal to 0. We observe the equation or the constraints, they are all a function of linear variable. So there are no non-linear terms, that is square terms or cube terms. So that's why this problem is called a linear programming problem. And coming to this next problem, the example of non-linear optimization problem. So it is maximize y is equal to f of x1 comma x2, it is equal to 3x1 square plus 5x2 cube, and subjected to the constraints x1 cube plus x2 square, it should be less than or equal to some number 545, and x1 square plus x2 cube less than or equal to 156, and the f1 and x2 equal to 0. If you observe these equations, like functional equation are the constraints, they are having square terms, cube terms. That's why they are called non-linear programming problems. And coming to the functional constraints, unconstrained and constrained. So far you are having like here, if you see, these are constrained optimization problem. This both linear and non-linear. In the cases, x1 x2 are going to take some values, that is greater than or equal to 0, and at the same time we are also going to impose certain constraint, or you are going to impose certain condition on those variables. If you see the linear programming problem, x1 plus x2 should be less than or equal to 5, and 6x1 plus 3x2 is less than or equal to 20. Coming to the non-linear problem, x1 cube plus x2 square less than or equal to 545, and x1 square plus x2 square less than or equal to 156. When I say the condition x1 and x2 greater than or equal to 0, it may take infinite number of values. At the same time, whatever the combination of x1 and x2 I am aiming, those should follow, or they should obey these constraints. So then this type of problem is called constrained optimization problem. If you are having conditions on the design variables, then that is called constraint optimization. If there is no constraints for this problem, if I define like maximize y is equal to f of x1 x2, 2x1 plus 3x2 plus 7x1 x2, and subjected to x1 x2 greater than or equal to 0, then I have not specified the said two conditions. So in that case, it is called unconstrained optimization problem. Then coming to the design variable, integer, only integers are used, real variables, only real variables are used. Mixed integer, the problem contains both real and integer variables. And static optimization and dynamic optimization. Say for example, for a case of mechanical engineering, we wanted to analyze the stresses induced in a beam of constant cross section when a load is applied. Then that is called, the cross section is not varying, the load is also not varying with respect to time, and that is called static optimization. And the diameter is constant and the load is varying with respect to time, and that is called dynamic optimization. The load is constant and the cross section is varying, that is also dynamic optimization. Like based on how we are going to impose, or how we are going to pose the problem as an optimization problem, so it decides that this problem is either a static optimization problem or a dynamic optimization problem. Okay, then we'll go to the next slide. So as I said, So far we have seen what is optimization and how we are going to optimize a single variable problem by utilizing the principles of mathematics or calculus. And then we have seen the classification of optimization problems. And now I am going to explain a method that is called exhaustive search method, which is also a traditional optimization method. So for example, whenever a problem is given, if I wanted to solve a problem, so then I should see whether directly I'll be going to solve the problem using a population-based optimization algorithm like a genetic algorithm like everybody is using, I should also use. Or before that, I should see that whether this problem can be solved by using any of these traditional methods. If it is not possible and the traditional methods are posing certain problem, so then only we will be switching over to the non-traditional optimization algorithms or recently used evolutionary algorithms. This is also called a population-based optimization algorithms. Okay. So this exhaustive search method is a traditional optimization method. And let us consider a unimodal function. Once again, that I'm using the term unimodal, means that we are having only one variable. So then means it is having only one peak of a single variable x defined in the range of, whenever I am solving a problem for a particular variable, as I mentioned in the earlier case, that variable should be varied within a particular range, so that we are always trying with different levels for this parameter, and we are interested in finding all feasible solutions, and along with that feasible solutions, we are also interested in finding what is the optimal solution. Okay, for that it is necessary that the design variable should have a range. So in this particular problem, as we are having only one variable, it should be varied between xmin to xmax, where xmin and xmax are the lower and upper limits of the variables. And our aim is to find the maximum or the maximize the function y is equal to fx. So the problem may be mathematically stated as follows: like minimize y is equal to fx, which is subjected to x min less than x less than or equal to x max. So then this is the figure, a schematic diagram showing the variation of the function, like the function is varying like this, and it is our region of interest is in between x min to x max. So depending upon the desired accuracy in the solution that is required, let us suppose that the range of the variable is x max minus x min is divided into n equal parts. The first and foremost thing that we have to do is that divide the range of this function. The range means that the range that is a region of interest, that x max to x min. So that range will be divided into a number of equal parts. Say if I'm going to divide it into n number of equal parts, and I'm going to get n minus 1 number of equal spaced intermediate points. And so if you wanted to increase the accuracy of the solution, this interval should be as small as possible. In order to make this interval as small as possible, the n should be very high. Of course, when n is increased, obviously the computational complexity and the solution time is increasing. But if I reduce the step size, if I reduce the number of steps, means if I go for coarser interval, the problem will be solved with within less time, but the problem is the solution accuracy. If you wanted to enhance or you wanted to have with the solution with a better accuracy, you have to divide that interval into more number of parts. That we will see how this method works and what type of solution we will be getting. So then once you divide the entire range into a number of intervals, then the following steps are to be followed. So what are the steps? The first step is like you have to assume three different variables, that is x1, x2, x3, only x only. That x is, I'll be taking three different values for x. That is the meaning of x1, x2, and x3. These are not three different variables. X1, like my interest, the region of my interest is from x minimum to x max. Whenever I wanted to search solution, I have to start from minimum, and then I will proceed further in order to find the solution. So to do so, that x1, the first value of x is obtained by considering x minimum, and x2 will be obtained by adding the delta x. Delta x, how we are obtaining? By dividing the entire range into n number of equal parts. X max minus x min by n is your delta x. So that is x1 plus delta x. And then x3 is equal to x2 plus delta x. So now what we'll be doing? The values of x1, x2 are in the ascending order, and we calculate the functional value. So you will be substituting the values of x1, x2, x3 in the function, and you will be getting values of x1, fx2, and fx3. And now we have to check for the condition. If fx1 is less than or equal to fx2, and it is greater than or equal to fx3, then the maximum point lies in the range x1 and x3, and we terminate the program. Once you obtain the values of x1, x2, x3, we will be substituting in the function, and we will be getting the functional values of x1, fx2, and fx3, and we will be checking the condition. What is that condition? If fx1 is less than or equal to fx2, which is greater than or equal to fx3, then only you can say that the maximum point lies in the range of x1, x3, and we terminate the program. Else, if the condition is violated, then we will be going for the next iteration. In this case, x1 will become x2, the previous x2, and x2 will become previous x3, and now x3 will become x2 plus delta x. Once again, I will be adding, and so I will be going slightly ahead to search in this place. And once again, you have to substitute these values in the function, and you will be getting the functional values of x1, fx2, fx3, and check. If the condition is okay, then we'll be deciding or saying and declaring that the maximum value lies in this range. Okay, we check whether x3 exceeds x max. If x3 does not exceed x max, we go to the step 2. Else, we say that the maximum does not lie in the range of x min and x max. Otherwise, if the condition was true, like in the earlier case there, the maximum was lying in the range of x max and x min. So that was the procedure for exhaustive search method. And now I am going to explain or solve a problem. Y is equal to f of x, that is equal to x square minus x cube, and x is varying in the range of 0.0 to 2.0. So now the x minimum is 0, x max is 2, and let us suppose the range x max minus xn is divided into 10 parts for the sake of quickly completing the problem. Now the first step is to decide delta x. What is delta x? Delta x is equal to x max minus x min by 10.1. Then x1 is equal to 0, x2 is equal to 0 plus 0.2, x3 is equal to 0.2 plus 0. Now x1 is equal to 0, x2 is equal to 0.2, x3 is equal to 0.5. Substitute the values in the function, and you will get x1, f of x1 is equal to 0, f of x2 is equal to 0.072, and f of x3 is equal to 0.56. This condition says f of x1 is less than f of x2 is less than f of x3. So our condition is not satisfied, as the maximum does not lie in this interval. Then we'll be going to the next step. Now x1 is equal to the previous value of x2, and x2 is equal to previous value of x3, and x3 is equal to x2 present plus delta x. Then we'll be substituting. And now the condition is 0.072, 0.256, 0.50. Here also the condition is violated. And then we'll be going for next iteration. So like that, this iteration will be continued. See there, it is gone up to step 14, and there I have got f of x1 is less than f of x2 is greater than f of x. So therefore, this is the maximum lies in the interval 1.2 to 1.6. But this is very coarse. The interval is very coarse, and we are not going. The problem is not going to. The problem has not suggested an accurate value. So therefore, if you wanted to get more accurate value, suppose you can go for n is equal to 100. Maybe you will be getting very narrow range. And if you see, find the maximum value for this function, the maximum value lies at 1.185. Analytically, I have solved the problem, and it occurs at x is equal to 1.333. The solution given was the solution is the exact research method has given a solution that the maximum lies in between 1.2 to 1.6, but its exact value is 1.33. So in order to reach that accuracy level, so you have to divide the range into very small number of intervals, means large number of intervals, so that you will be getting very small step. Then you can increase the solution accuracy. Okay, now if you see what is your inference from this solution. So here the solution or the search for the solution begins with one initial random solution. My search is going to start from only one initial guess, whatever it is. If you wanted to any method you consider in the case of traditional optimization, just I've given only one example. In all the methods, we have to start our search from an initial guess solution. If the initial guess that we have considered is if it is falling, say for example, if I consider a multimodal solution like this, and even then your problem is having a multimodal solution, you are going to start your search from only one initial guess. So if you are so lucky that your initial guess falls in this basin. Now here if you see the basin, this is called local basin, this is called global basin. If you see from the outside, then only you will be able to find where is global minimum. So this basin is called global basin, and these basins are called local basin or local optimum solutions. So in the case, if you are guessing, and if you are a very good guesser, then if you are so fortunate, and you will be able to guess a solution in this region, and you will be reaching this, directly hitting the global minimum. Then in the case, if you are guessing a solution in this region, will happen, it will straight away go here and it will stuck there. Means that your problem has stuck in the local optimum solution. So that's why generally we'll be saying most of the traditional optimization methods are, there is a chance that the solution is going to stuck in the local basin. So that's why for a single basin or unimodal solution, you need not go for any optimization methods. Any simple traditional optimization method, because it is having only one basin, it is having only one minimum. That minimum is global minimum for this function. But whereas if you come to this multimodal function, so it is not only having local minimum, it is also having local minimum as well as global minimum. So in this case, if you guess start from a local basin, chances are very high, and the solution will be stuck in the local optimum. Okay, so this is related to. Okay, so this is the main drawback of traditional optimization methods. Now we will see problems with the traditional optimization methods. The final solution of an optimization problem solved using a traditional methods depend on the randomly chosen initial solution. If the initial solution lies in the local basin, the final solution will get stuck at the local optimum. That is an important drawback. And the other important drawback is, for a discontinuous function, the gradient cannot be determined. What is the gradient? Nothing but the slope of the curve. If it is a discontinuous curve or a discontinuous function, it is not possible to determine the slope, or it is not possible to obtain the gradient information. So if the gradient information is not available, all these calculus based methods are going to fail. So you cannot obtain any solution. Yeah, and more importantly, a particular traditional optimization method may not be suitable to solve a variety of problems. That's why we are having so many optimization methods in our operations research. This is open operation. There are several optimization methods, and whatever the method that is used to solve a particular problem, that cannot be equally applicable for a different problem. So these are all the major drawbacks. So that's why researchers around the world are searching for an algorithm that will work at least with 2 or more just 2 problems. If it is working beyond 2, then it is very good. So like that they are searching, and this genetic algorithm is one such methodology, and it is falling under the category of evolutionary algorithms, which work based on the Darwin's principle of natural selection. So GA is a population-based global search and optimization technique, and it was introduced by Professor John Holland of University of Michigan in 1965. It is generally designed to solve a maximization problem. And before solving a problem, and we'll discuss the working principle and fundamentals of genetic algorithm. And I'm going to explain the principle of operation or working of a genetic algorithm. So with the help of this flow chart, and this is the start, and it starts with a randomly initialized population of solutions. That is the big difference between the traditional optimization methods and non-traditional optimization methods like genetic algorithm. They start their search with multiple solutions. As I said, in the earlier case, we have started our search with the help of one initial guess, randomly generated initial guess. But coming to this genetic algorithms, they are going to start our search with multiple number of solutions generated randomly, initially generated randomly in the solution space. Like this. In the earlier case, I was having a chance to randomly select only one solution. So now here, in the case of genetic algorithms, we are going to generate a population of solutions which are more than one. I may go with 10, I may go with 100, I may go with 10,000, I may go with 1 lakh, depending upon the complexity of the problem. We may select the initial population. Okay. So then, once you select the initial population, so like very much similar to your traditional optimization method, I should see whether this particular solution is feasible or not. So for that, what I have to do? I have to find the fitness. I have to find the fitness of the function. What is the fitness of the function? Fitness means the worth of the solution. If it is a maximization problem, the fitness should be always high. If it is a minimization problem, the fitness should be always low. Say, for example, I am trying to optimize the profit. Profit should always be maximized. I am trying to optimize the expenses. Always it needs to be minimized. Like depending upon the objective on which we are working, the problem need to be formulated as either a maximization problem or a minimization. So coming to the case of genetic algorithm, so once the initial set of populations are generated, means initial values of the variables. Say for example, you are having a 2-value variable problem like x1 and x2. So you have to generate x1 and x2, like 100 values for x1 and x2. within that range specified. So these 100 values are called the feasible solutions. And from these feasible solutions, we are trying to find the optimal solution. So now, as I said, once you initialize the population and you will be getting the solutions, initial randomly generated initial solutions, and calculate the fitness of the individual function, fitness of the individual solution. Means we'll be substituting the value of x and x1 and x2 in the function, and I'll be getting the functional value. And so now we'll be going for a check. Is the termination criteria satisfied? Like the termination criteria could be maximum number of generations. Like I'll be running this algorithm for 100 generations. As at the initial level, generation number is 0, so it has not satisfied the condition. No, then we'll be going for the next block, that is called parent selection. As I said, you have selected, you have initially generated 100 populations, and these 100 populations are substituted in the function, and you will be getting 100 fitness functions. So depending upon whether your function is a maximization problem or a minimization problem, accordingly we are going to select the. Like if the function problem to be optimized is maximization, then you are going to select the parents that are having highest fitness. Selecting parents is an important thing. So then we will be employing the selection scheme, and once you select 2 parents, then we will be exchanging the information. But from the 2 parents, I'll be getting children solution. Like there are 2 parents, and you will be getting 2 children. How the 2 children are coming? So by exchanging the information or genetic information between these 2 parents, we will be getting a 2 new children. Like our case, we are having 2 parents, and whatever the children we are obtaining is having a mix of properties of these parents. So because genetically they are exchanging the information, and as a result, the child obtained will be sometimes brighter or better than parents. Sometimes even the parents are the best, but you are going to get an inferior kid having some problem. They're healthy, parents are healthy, but the kid, of course, having some problem. But parents may be suffering from some problem, but the children obtained may not be having any problem, extremely fit. Similar principles, like I said, this is Darwin's principle of survival of the fittest. So here also, once the parents exchange the information, the genetic information, you will be getting 2 different or 2 new children. So sometimes they'll be exhibiting altogether new properties. Sometimes they'll be better than the parents. That is possible. So that is called crossover, exchanging. By selecting 2 parents, you'll be exchanging the information, and that is called crossover, and as a result, you'll be getting 2 children solution, 2 child solution. And then this child will undergo mutation. So in the case of crossover, I'll be operating on pairs, and coming to the mutation, I'll be operating individually. Mutation means very small change that I'm going to introduce. As a result, I may get some improvement. I may get some improvement in the child solution. So I'm going to explain the same thing by this example. So once again, you consider a problem like this, and I have selected a solution here. This generally what we'll be doing depth search. In the case of optimization, we'll be doing depth search. I'll be considering a solution, and I'll be moving towards that global basis. And in a particular scenario, I've got a solution. I don't know where it is, but I am visualizing with the help of some example. And as I said, the mutation is a very small change, so that the numerical value of the solution may increase, will be changing. So with that change, either this solution may come this side, or it may go this side depending upon the change. Luckily, the change has happened in this direction. What is happened here? There are no solutions. Here are many solutions. Like here are many solutions. There is no solution falling in the global basin. This type of situation may also arise. So then with the help of mutation, the solution will be coming here and finally it will be reaching global basin. So that is the meaning of mutation. Okay. And then once the mutation is over, then it means that one generation is completed. And then it will be going to the top. And so now after the completion of first generation, altogether you will be having new population. So in the GSH, the population size will be constant throughout the sites. So initially I have assumed 50 population. Throughout GSH, there will be 50 population only after all generations. Now after first generation only, it will be having new 50 strings. Then the 50 strings, once again, I will be evaluating the fitness and then checking for the termination criteria. And once again, the parent selection crossover mutation. And the generation 2 will be over. Like that, it will run for several generations. And after certain generations, there won't be any change in the fitness value of that particular population. So then we will be considering that solution as the global solution or the optimal solution. Okay, this is the flow chart explaining the operation of genetic algorithm. The same thing I have explained here. GA starts with population of initial solutions generated at random. The fitness solution and the population is calculated. Basically, GS are designed to solve maximization problem. Thus, the minimization problem can be converted to a corresponding maximization problem by using duality principle. And the population of solutions is then modified using different operators, namely reproduction, crossover, mutation, and others. Just now I explained. Reproduction is utilized to select the good solution after using their fitness. The mating pairs are selected at random from the above pool, which may participate in crossover depending on the value of the crossover. The mutation means sudden change of parameter. In GSH, it is used for achieving a local change around the current solution. After mutation, once again, the fitness value will be that I already explained. So I said that the principle of duality, like if you are having a function like this, okay, so this is minimization problem, but GA basically it will be used to handle maximization problem. So then utilizing the principle of duality, I'll be going for this type of function. And now if I determine this value, and it will be the maximum for this function. Okay, then it will be converted to the minimum value of the other function. So that is maximize y is equal to minus f of x. And x is greater than 0. Or we can also use y is equal to 1 by fx. This is also called the principle of duality. And then there are several variants of genetic algorithm: binary coded GA, real coded GA, micro GA, scheduling GA, and visualized interactive GA. And so now we are going to see only the binary coded genetic algorithm. So let us consider an optimization problem to explain the working of binary coded GA. Minimize y is equal to maximize y is equal to f of x1 x2 and subjected to x1 minimum less than or equal to x1 less than or equal to x1 max, and x2 minimum less than or equal to x2 less than or equal to x2 max, where x1 and x2 are the real variables. The following steps are utilized to solve the above problem using binary coded GA. So as part of that, the generation of population of solutions. The first thing is how to generate the population of solutions. And an initial population of solutions of size n is selected at random. The solutions are represented in the form of binary strings composed of ones and zeros. In the case of binary coded genetic algorithm, name suggests we are going to use only two different types of bits, that is two different types of strings, that is 1 or 0. The length of the binary string is decided based on the decimal accuracy. How many number of bits to be used to represent a particular variable, it all depends upon the decimal accuracy that is being required to solve the problem. So for the sake of explanation, here I've considered 5 bits are assigned to represent each variable, and therefore you see here I've got like these are the bits. First 5 are going to represent x1. The second 5 bits are going to represent x2. This is population 1, and this is the population 2, and this is population 3. This initial population generated at random. Like that, we may have 100 populations or 1000 populations, and in each population there are bits. Those bits corresponds to the variables. Here in this problem, we have considered 5 bits to represent a particular variable. Okay. So then, while converting these 5 bits to the problem information, so then you have to use this formula. This is called chain rule. So x1 is equal to x1 min plus x1 max minus x1 min by 2 to the power L minus 1 into D. This is the linear mapping rule. Okay. So this is x1 min. X1 min corresponds to the minimum value of the particular variable, and x1 max corresponds to the maximum value of a particular variable, and L represents the length of the string, and the D represents decoded value of this variable. How I am going to obtain the decoded value of a particular variable? Say if I consider 10110. So let us consider 10110. What I will be doing? I will be writing like 2 power 0, 2 power 1, like 2 power 2, 2 power 3, and 2 power 4. So then what I will be doing? 1 into 2 power 4 plus 0 into 2 power. Then the reproduction scheme. The reproduction operator will be used to select good solution from the population of strings based on their fitness information. Several reproduction schemes are being used. Then I'm going to explain the reproduction operator. The Rowlett wheel selection. This Rowlett wheel selection, the wheel is rotated.
Sir, you are not audible. Hello, sir. Sir, you are not audible. Sir, you are not audible. Not getting, sir. Not audible.
I think he might be facing some connection issue. Let's wait for a while. We are trying to contact him. All the participants, please wait. We just had to talk with him. He will be rejoining soon. There, there is a network issue on his side. He is trying to reconnect. So have patience and just wait.
Hello.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Audible, sir. You continue, sir. Sir, audible.
But once again, please give me that sharing option, sir. Sharing is not working. It seems. Yes.
Sharing option, sir. Your video is coming, sir.
Yes. Now we got
Okay,
Sorry
sir.
for the disturbance. Sorry for the disturbance. That there was all of a sudden there was a big rain. There is a power loss and internet connection loss. Okay. So now, in the case of tournament selection, let us consider the size of tournament is 2. The minimum n is required is 2, or you can have n is equal to 3, n is equal to 4, n is equal to 5. But in this case, when I consider n is equal to 2, so I'll be picking two solutions from the initial populations, and I'll be checking their fitness and placing the best one in the mating pool and returning once again both the parents to the initial population. Like this, I have to repeat this tournament selection for once again 50 times because I have to maintain the population size constant throughout. That is called tournament selection. And next one is elitism. So elitism is the process of copying the best string to the next generation. And even though after performing all these operations, and sometimes it is not guaranteed that the best string has been passed to the what we call your mating. So in that case, in order to ensure that the best string has been copied to the mating pool, we are going to copy the best string to the mating pool. So that is what is called elitism. Okay. So then crossover. Once the mating pool is filled with 15 new populations that are being selected based on the fitness, now we'll be moving to the crossover operation. Is nothing but exchanging the information between two chromosomes or two parents, and as a result we will be obtaining two new solutions. And this crossover probability is based on a parameter called probability of crossover, which is denoted by PC, and it will be varying from 0 to 1. Okay, for example, if the value of PC is greater than 0.6, then the two parents will participate in crossover and exchange their properties. I'll be taking the crossover probability between 0 to 1, and if the probability of crossover value is taken to be 0.6, and then I will be generating a random number, and if the random number nothing but a tossing of a coin. See if the probability value comes out to be the randomly generated number comes out to be more than 0.6 or greater than 0.6, then only there is an exchange of information. Okay. And there are several crossover schemes that are available: single point crossover, 2-point crossover, multi-point crossover, and a uniform crossover. And if it is a single point crossover, so we select the crossover set between 1 and L minus 1. Like we will be having two strings as showing it here. There will be, this is string 1 and this is string 2, parent 1 and parent 2. Now I wanted to exchange the information between these two parents. So then what I'll be doing, how to consider crossover set. Like the space between two bits, this bit and this bit, this is a space. This is called as crossover site. These are called as crossover sites. Now what we will be doing, so as I said, we have decided the probability of crossover is 0.6. Now I will come here and I will toss a coin, like generating a random number. Tossing a coin means I will be generating a random number. If the random number generated comes out to be more than 0.6, greater than 0.6, then the information like the strings above will be exchanging like this, and this will go up. This is called crossover. Okay, single point crossover. What is the problem now? Immediately if the crossover site occurs at the first site, the entire string towards the right will be swapped from bottom to top and top to bottom. And as a result, you will be having similar string except one decimal or one bit change. The rest of the strings are the same. Or if you are lucky, and then you will be getting the crossover set like as shown here. What will happen? The entire bits from here, they will move down, and the strings that are there in the bottom will move. The same thing you can observe, like after crossover 0 1 0 1 1 0 1, and whatever the strings that are there, 1 1 0 1 0 0 1 1 0 1 0 0, from the bottom string to the top string they have exchanged information, from top string to the bottom string. The drawback is that if the crossover sites comes too early or if the crossover set come too late, then the entire string will be swapped from top to bottom and bottom to top, and there is no much information exchange. So that's why it is having a problem. So then we'll be going to the next site, 2-point crossover. Like in the case of single point crossover, we have selected only one crossover site. And coming to the 2-point crossover, you'll be selecting 2 crossover sites, and from the left and the right we will be leaving as it is, and in between we will be swapping. That is called 2-point crossover. Multi-point crossover, we will be having multiple number of crossover sites, 5, 10, 20. Then in that case, alternative string will be swapped. The information in the alternative crossover sites will be swapped. That is called multi-point crossover. In all the cases, they are having problem because of non-change in the information of the strings, particularly when the string length is too long, like 500, 1000, 2000. So then in that case, we are going to use another crossover operator, that is called uniform crossover. This is in this case crossover probability is 0.5 only as a head or toss. So in this case, what we'll be doing, we will be going to each and every crossover site. Like here, I will be coming here, and I will come here, and I will toss a coin. And if the probability of crossover comes out to be less than 0.5, there is no change, and I will come here. And if it is greater than 0.5, then one will come down and 0 will go up. Like every bit will be checking. So that's why it will be little efficient when compared to the other schemes. That's why most of the cases will be using uniform crossover. And then mutation, as I said, mutation will be performed in a single population. I've already explained this. Like mutation will introduce a lateral search. We said mostly we'll be going for depth search, and this crossover made GA powerful by introducing the feature of lateral search. Okay, this is one hand calculation, like that is how the genetic algorithm will operate, and for the sake of understanding like how GA is going to work for optimization, I have taken a problem that is y is equal to root x and 1 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 16. So for that I have considered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 populations, and for 6 is 6 bits for each variable, and I have decoded like writing 2 power 0, 2 power 1, 2 power 2 like that, decoded value, and x value is obtained by using linear mapping tool, and then I have obtained what do we call the selection, probability of selection and expected count, and then mating pool. I said based on this expected count, the population will be selected for the next generation. This is generation mother. This is for the mating pool for the next generation. Here they have written this: the string 1 be appearing once, string 2 will be appearing once, string 3 no, it is not going to appear in the mating pool. String 4 is going to appear twice because it is having 1.31 expected count. String 5 1.16, it is going to repeat for 2 times. So like that, that string, as I said, the first string will be appearing once, 100 101. It has come once, and the second string is going to appear once, that is 011 0 011 010. That 011 010, and the fourth string is going to appear twice. That's why 111 010. 111 010 has appeared twice, and then fifth string is also appearing twice, 101100 101100. This is the mating pool, and the other two population which were having less fitness, that is points fitness is here 2.02 and 2.50. Compared to these strings, string 6 and string 3 are having less fitness, so they were omitted. And now if you go with this, then once again this has become the mating pool, and you will be having once again 6 populations, and then we are selecting mating pair. One will be going to mate with 3, 1 and 3. 1 minute. This 3 means one is going to mate with 3, and this is going to mate with 6, and this is like 4 and 5. So these are the mating pair. These are become mating pairs, and now these are the new parents, and crossover site. I have decided randomly. This crossover site has been decided randomly, and you have got new strings. This is the initial population, and after the first generation we have got new children, and then they are being mutated. And as I said, mutation will be very rare, and only one bit, this dark bit, has been changed. This is the only thing, mutation. And then from this, after mutation, this has become the modified children for the and this they will be forming as the population after the first generation. And then once again, for that you will be I have come here. So then I will be going for decoding the values, and then finding the x value and finding the root. If you see once again the fitness, here 3.13, 2.68, another fitness has been changed. Here the average total fitness is 17.57, with the total fitness is 20.86. The average fitness is 2.93, and the average fitness is 3.8. The maximum fitness is 3.81, and the maximum fitness is 3.9. So from this, as it is a maximization problem compared to the information that is available from the initial population, that is the average fitness, and the average fitness after the generation 1, so there is an enhancement. The fitness has been improved, means the solution is going to converge to the maximum solution. Okay, this is an explanation of how GA works on a simple problem. And now, in order to give a better idea, a better view of how a genetic algorithm works on an engineering problem, I have considered a machining problem, that is electrochemical machining problem. And here we have considered the variables like current, voltage, flow rate, and gap. And these are the range of this variable, minimum and maximum. And we have conducted experiments, and we have obtained the nonlinear regression equations for this problem. So once you have nonlinear regression equations, then this problem is converted to minimize RA plus 1 by MRR. This is the problem, and these are the bounding binds of the decision variables. And once you establish the problem, and then in order to determine the best values, the optimal values of the process, you have to conduct a parametric study. So parametric study represents the parameters of the GA that are responsible for the best performance of the process. So for that, we have to conduct a parametric study, like by varying mutation probability, population size, and the fitness, and then final objective function and maximum number of generations. Like it has converged to a solution. Like there is no variation in the fitness function. After certain number of generations, we will be stopping. Then it is nothing but the GA has converged to the solution. And if you see, these are the parameters of GA. PC is 0.5, PME 0.0055, population is 30, and maximum number of generations are 65. And if I run the program and it has obtained the optimum values of current, for voltage, flow rate, and gap with 243.55816 amperes, 28.97 volts, 6.99 liter per minute, and 0.5 mm, has given an MRR of 0.35116 gram per minute and a surface roughness of 5.373 microns. And this is how GA has converged the solution and optimized an engineering problem. Okay, any queries? Sir, Sridhar sir.
Yes, participants, if you have any queries,
You can
please
ask.
raise the query. Then participants are asking, sir, quote the examples in management field, this genetic algorithm applications in management field. Some examples they are asking.
So management means like traveling salesman problem is there. And traveling salesman problem, there is a separate algorithm. That normal genetic algorithm is not going to, that is scheduling GA will work. Because there are constraints, and after visiting a particular city only, he has to go for the next city, and there will be using a traveling salesman problem. And like scheduling problems in the management, like whenever we are scheduling a job for a particular machine, so there we have to follow the machining constraints before plane turning, and then step turning, and then threading. So like that, whenever there are this type of constraints, normal genetic algorithm is not going to work. So there we have to schedule the traveling salesman problem. So these are all the various examples in the case of management. Like people are using TOPSIS for multi-criteria or multi-decision in the case of management and various supply chain management problems. So there you can effectively use multi-objective genetic algorithm is there, exclusively designed for multiple objectives that can be used.
Any more queries from the participants? Then thank you very much, sir, Dr.
Okay, sir.
Pavanjanga sir, to share your valuable time with us. Sir has explained basic concepts of optimization, starting from what is the meaning of local minimum, global minimum, and how to find the minimum maximum value of the functions and the key methods. Then he explained the genetic algorithm concept, and he has shown one case study. Hope the participants this concept they can use in their area of interest, because Sir has given the flow chart for the algorithm also. Then further requirements are there, we can send the queries also. Sir will answer. Then I requesting Dr. Pavanjanga sir to share this PPT for the participants. If you can
Definitely,
share
sir.
it to me,
Definitely, I will
we
send
will
it.
share
I
to
will
the
send it to you.
participants.
I will send it to you.
Sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you. I'm leaving. Okay.
Thanks. Yes.